Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor.
And the Greg Oden to his Mike Conley. Jake.
Speechless on that one. Gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sage. You can follow me and find all my picks on Twitter at Professor Sage. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. This is the bonus episode. We're going to cover every Thursday NCAA tournament game we have not already covered. There are 4 of those that we've already given out. See the other episodes. They'll be linked in the description as well. For those 4, we've got 12 other games to cover. Y'all know the drill at this point, so we are going to get right to it with an 11:15 a.m. Central tip. Michigan is a 2-point favorite versus Colorado State. The model pegs this right at Michigan -2. I think this will be a fantastic game, but the model thinks that the total should be 141, and so I'm going over 139. It's only a C pick for me, so I don't love it, but I think over is the way to go here. Both of these teams have great offenses, very average defenses. The pace is the only issue in this game that's keeping this from being a B pick. The pace might slow down a little bit, but the offenses are so good. I think that the over is the way to look in this one. Jake, with such a short number, you're basically just picking the winner. So who wins between Michigan and Colorado State?
Ooh, this is a great way to start off the tournament. It's a great opening game for it. I lean Colorado State here. I think Michigan has been too inconsistent all year. They don't have enough scoring out of their guard play. They're really going to be dependent on Hunter Dickinson, which is not a bad thing, especially in this matchup, because Colorado State really doesn't have a big guy to go against him. What they're going to do, or what, in my opinion, if I was coaching them, would do is I'm going to high pressure their guards as soon as they cross half court, make it really tough to get it to him in front him, and hopefully really make it hard, make him have to work to get to the ball. But that also goes on the other end too, right? That means he's stepping out and having to guard somebody that can step out and moving him around. And he's not that great of a rim protector. He can block some shots when he comes from the weak side, but he's not a very great rim protector if you're going straight at him. And this Colorado State offense, we've talked about it several times this year. They are very, very efficient. They're very, very good. And most importantly, they hit their free throws at a really high clip. In the last few games, they've not been hitting the 3 ball like normal. But I think that'll come back to the norm because they've played some exceptional defenses there with San Diego State and Boise State. Or like a couple of the last few teams they played, maybe UNLV, which are really good defenses, and they guard the 3-point arc. So I think that you'll see that come back to normal, and they'll score a little more points than most people are expecting. As long as Roddy and Stevens are having a good game, I think they win this, at least cover it.
All right, and so then we've got Memphis at 12:45 Central is a 2.5-point favorite against Boise State, total of 133.5. The model says Memphis -2, so I'm staying away from the side. I think the number's pretty accurate. I've got another C pick for you here, just a lean under 133.5. The model thinks 132.8. I have a hard time with Memphis. They were so bad, and then they were so good. They did lay an egg there right before the tournament started here on that Sunday with how they lost to Houston. I'm not sure what to make of that. I think in this case, the total is the safer play. Both defenses are good. It's going to be about who controls the pace. Boise wants to slow it down, maybe not quite to the extreme that some of the teams in their conference do, but they want to go pretty slow. If they let Memphis run, we're going to be it's going to spell trouble for Boise State. It's going to spell trouble for the under as well. And so I have to assume with the week to prep, Boise knows that and is going to take the air out of this ball. And that doesn't mean that points won't be scored, but I just don't think they'll be scored at a clip to get us over that number of 133.5. So under, I think, is the way I lean there. Same question, though. We got some good ones to start off with, some tight spreads here. Not quite just picking the winner. There's an extra result that can get you a loss here as opposed to the previous one. If you're picking Michigan, the only thing that, Michigan wins by 1, you lose, but 2 at least you push. Here, if Memphis wins by 1 or 2, then you don't win if you're laying the 2.5. So does Memphis win? And if so, do they win by 3 or more, or are you taking the points in a toss-up game?
I'm actually going back to the Mountain West. I'm taking Boise State. I think the Mountain West had a really good conference this year. And the biggest thing in this game is the turnovers, right? Like Memphis is one of the top 5 worst teams at taking care of the ball, right around 16 a game. That reared its ugly head in that Houston game. And even some games they win, they're up there around that 15, 16, 17 mark. They're just able to take advantage on the offensive end where they're more talented. But I don't like with Duran is a great player, but Boise State's got a couple guys that can bang with him, make his life a little slow, and they're a little dependent on him to score right now, especially with Bates out. I don't think Bates is coming back this year. I think he's using this back to not as an excuse to not be with the team. But the books have had a hard time picking this Boise State team. They're 7-2 as an underdog, so this is and they've got a decent offense, and a really really good defense. They force on average about 14 turnovers a game. So I think that number explodes when you talk about how Memphis doesn't take care of the ball. The only thing that makes me nervous is they're a really bad free throw shooting team, and not that Memphis is good, but it's not hard to be better than Boise State at it.
We've talked about that a lot this year, that Boise State can struggle at the free throw line.
Yeah, so I mean, it's burned us a couple times when they should have covered, but I think they do enough on the defensive end here to get it done and keep it. I think they win this game, but I mean, if the Memphis that came out to play against like SMU and them shows up, Boise will get wiped off the floor.
Yep. Should be a really good one. And that takes us to a game that won't be a good one at 1:45 Central. Longwood versus Tennessee. I think I joked about this on the bracket special. A Longwood team, I'm pretty sure I haven't said their name all season. I guess the Tennessee team that is playing fantastic. Rick Barnes has struggled in the tournament. That's part of the reason that the relationship went south with him at Texas, despite building up a pretty solid program there and him having more success at Texas than anybody's had since. But the tournament failures just could not be overlooked. And he has done really well at Tennessee with that. But this Tennessee team may be a little bit different, a little bit better. Shouldn't have a problem in this one winning the game. The only question is, can they cover 17? I have no total play for you here. My model makes this total 132. And so with the game being 132 right now, there's really no edge there, in my opinion. Jake, I know we disagree on this one. On the bracket special, I made the joke about, count how many times Jake makes a homer play. I'm not saying that you're going to make a homer play by picking Tennessee, but, I'm just going to let our listeners, they can make their own inferences here on this one. I'm going to tell you why I think Longwood makes a lot of sense here. The Longwood offense is not that far behind Tennessee's. I think their offense is pretty good. The issue, of course, is their defense, but I think there are just more scenarios where Tennessee wins by 12 than by 22. And that 17 is a lot for a team that isn't built to score 80. If I'm laying 17 points in one of these early games, I want it to be with a team that I think gets to 80, because Tennessee, being more of a defensive-minded team, and Longwood, their strength being their offense, I think Longwood can score enough to keep them in it. It's a situation where if it was flipped and their issue was their offense, if Longwood had a worse offense but a decent defense, I'd say this feels like one of those weird, we always have one weird tournament game. It feels like a weird tournament game where Tennessee might win like 55-30 or something, and you're like, was that the halftime show? Like, we always have like one weird game like that, right? Yeah. But Longwood's offense is better, and Tennessee just isn't built to score that much. And so I just think that's too many points for 17. Like I said, if I'm laying that many, I just want it to be with an offense that's going to run away. And then I don't care how many points they give up, because they're going to score so many. A lot of the games, I think that if we disagree on, I'll be able to give you a total. Unfortunately, this one I don't. So this one, it's either the side Longwood or Tennessee. Jake, sell us on Tennessee minus 17.
Like, Longwood had a great year, right? Like I said last time we mentioned them, I think they had won 2 games like the previous year, kind of like at Iowa State kind of thing. And now they're here in the tournament, won their conference, and I think they really were in control of the conference all year. So, like, congratulations to them, but this is where it comes to an end. This Tennessee team, they haven't run into a defense like this Tennessee team. Like, not only Tennessee is good on the half-court defense, but they force a lot of turnovers. They can run a 3-headed point guard monster with Ziegler, Chandler, and Vescovi, and like that really drives teams nuts, because they have a hard time covering that, and also have a hard time figuring out who they're going to have bring up the ball. Barnes is an exceptional defensive coach. Struggles on the offensive end. Tennessee's offense does disappear. Like, even if you look at the Texas A&M game, their last game, they went up 14 or 16-0, and then it didn't really expand that lead. But I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I think Tennessee's, like, it'll start off close, and then Tennessee will just pull away, especially in the second half. Find some open transition threes. A few of those go down, especially the way Josiah Jordan-James is playing and the improving play of Euros Bosic and Aidu and Hunley Hatfield. I think it'll be just too much for this Longwood team, and I think they'll get it around 20.
All right, and that takes us to Richmond, Iowa, another game that probably shouldn't be in doubt too much. Obviously, Richmond has a chance to win that one, but it's not what we expect. The main question will be, can Iowa win by more than 10? The total is 150. My goodness, it's a lot of points for a tournament game. If this was a regular season game at either venue, I feel like this total would be more like 153, 154, right? It would be a little bit higher even. The model makes a total 151. So if you wanted to look over, you could. Iowa's overs have been fantastic of late, so not really a bad idea. I've got a B pick for you, though, on Richmond plus 10.5. I think these defenses are the same, and the Richmond offense is pretty good. Iowa's offense is great. I did pick them to go to the Final Four. I like riding them. I just think there's a lot more ways that they win this game by 1-10 than 11 or more. I think about the Indiana game. Indiana and Richmond obviously have some differences, but I think they're pretty comparable. And I see it playing out similar to that, where Iowa's the better team, but Richmond can go on some runs just like Indiana did. And again, we're not picking who wins, we're picking who covers. And there's just a lot of numbers between 1 and 10 that I think Iowa gets this done by. Jake, what's your take?
See, I'm on the other end. I think Richmond shot their shot to get here, and I don't know that there's another bullet in the chamber. I think it was everything they could do to get to this, and they had to have a huge comeback against the Davidson team, who's got a really good offense, but it's not as good as Iowa's. And it's also they don't have Richmond doesn't have one Murray, and Iowa has two, right? Keegan and Chris, they're very, very good. They're almost identical players. I think that'll really show up next year if Chris stays. Like, he'll be almost a carbon copy of Keegan, and just Keegan can just light you up from all over the floor. They don't have a matchup for him because I think he's around 6'9", 6'10", and Richmond doesn't have an athlete that's that big that can chase him, and they're going to run him all over the court. He can have a game where he hits 8 threes, or he can hit one and then just beat you up around the bucket. So it's going to be – he's going to really take off and show out here, I think, and I think they get this done closer to 15.
All right, and then another – what should be a laugher here, Georgia State versus Gonzaga, 3:15 Central. Gonzaga is a 23-point favorite. That is a lot of points to lay, but the model thinks it should be Gonzaga minus 22.2. So I'm staying away from the side on this one. I like a lot of these big dogs early on. I think my personal takes of the big dogs, probably 3 out of 4 are going to hit. So I think in general, you're probably safer taking the big dogs than laying the numbers. This is not a big dog I want to take against a Gonzaga team that can score and score and score for days. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go over 149 with a C pick. The model thinks 149.5, so the model gives it just a tiny edge. That's why it's only a C pick. I assume the backups are going to get in, and I assume they're going to want to have some fun. This is their only guaranteed game to play. That doesn't mean they won't play in further tournament games, but this is their one for sure we're going to get in the tournament game. So I think they're going to want to get up and down and score. They're not going to necessarily try to take the air out of the ball. I think we're going to see a lot of points in this one. With regards to can Georgia win by more than 23, I have no idea. I assume not many people are going to be watching this until the final maybe 2 minutes, because otherwise there's something else better to watch. Jake, when we get to those final 2 minutes, can Gonzaga pull it out and cover the 23 points?
Yeah, I think they do. Gonzaga specializes in beating teams like this. They like beating teams like a drum. They really take advantage of when they are the overly talented team. And I'm not saying Mark Few goes up to run out the score. It's just he plays his game and he's not changing it. And that goes for the bench players when he unloads the bench. They play the same kind of game and they take advantage. And I think they'll get this one done. I think this one smells of a 30 to 40 point win.
Yeah, it's very possible. There's always one massive blowout. And if I had to pick one, again, I don't project any of them to be that way. Like I said, I think the big dogs are probably safer, but there will be one blowout. And this is definitely the favorite on Thursday to be that one super ugly game with the way Gonzaga plays. And Georgia State is a solid team, but they're not. I don't think Georgia State's as good as Texas Southern. I don't think Georgia State's as good as Norfolk State. I just don't think they're quite as good as some of the other 15, 16 teams that are out there that make you say, oh, they do this one thing that maybe can hang in. I don't see anything special about Georgia State that lets them hang in here.
Yeah.
Got some maybe more of an interesting game right around that same time slot. 3:30 Central, Marquette versus North Carolina. North Carolina is a 4-point favorite, total of 152. My model says North Carolina minus 3.9. So, I mean, again, about as close as you can get there. So I'm staying away from the side on this one. And I'm taking under 152. It's a B pick for me. The model thinks 148 should be the number. Both of these offenses are good, but not great. And that's a little bit surprising when you think about North Carolina because you think about such a great offense. There's actually more solid defense than you realize in this game. Believe it or not, North Carolina is basically even with Marquette in Ken Palm's defensive efficiency, which is not the narrative. The narrative you hear is that North Carolina runs up and down, so much offense, no defense, but their defense actually isn't awful. And so I think this number is being driven up by this narrative of how bad North Carolina's defense is and how much they score. And that doesn't mean they don't score a lot. It just means 152 is too many points. I think this stays in the 140s. I personally want to stay away from the side because it reminds me a lot of the Indiana-Wyoming game that we had here in the first four, where I say Indiana was the better team, but I didn't love the number of 4 for either side. I think North Carolina is the better team. I don't love the number 4 either way. So I'm going under. Jake, which side gets it done? North Carolina minus 4, or are you taking the points of the Marquette?
I like North Carolina here. Like, they're Shaka Smart, as I've been bragging on him all year, but he's won one NCAA tournament game since that Final Four run with VCU.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, there really is. And it's like when I was looking at it, I was like, oh. And that was like the next year with pretty much the same team who won the one game, and then he went 0 for at Texas. So that's it's not a good look. And I know it's Hubert Davis's first run at an NCAA tournament game, but he was the main assistant for a title run, so he at least has been exposed to what this is. And then North Carolina's 13-11 as a favorite, right? Or 13-11-1. So I think they get this done because they're used to it. They're really improving. They started off so bad, but now they're improving. I think this is like their defense. Everybody doesn't want to talk about it or kind of thinks it's bad because it's the same kind of scenarios that South Dakota State, right? They score so much, they run at such a high pace, it just creates extra possessions in the game. And like even if you're playing good defense, they're going to score at some point. So that more times they have the ball, the more chances they have. So I think it's one of those kinds of things. They really improved taking care of the ball and improved a 3-point shot. I don't think Marquette has got Justin Lewis is a great player and Marcel's a great shooter, but that's the end of their offense. It's going to be tough for them to guard, especially if Caleb Love is hitting, or especially really if Brady Manick is hitting. That is a deadly 1-2 combo because he's a big guy, and you put Bacot in the middle, you can't sleek off him because if he's hitting the jump shot, and he can also take you inside, and that means Bacot's down there by himself, probably getting the rebound if they miss, and that's just really tough combo to guard.
All right, and then for the evening games, we're going to start off with another laugher here. 6:10 Central, St. Peter's versus Kentucky. Kentucky a 17.5-point favorite with a total of 132. It's a B pick for me on St. Peter's plus 17.5. The model thinks Kentucky should only be a 15-point favorite. Jake, I know you disagree with me on this one, so if you are conflicted at our disagreements, I think the under makes a lot of sense. It's not my official pick, but I think under 132 makes a lot of sense. The model thinks it should be 129. St. Peter's defense is just as good as Kentucky's. Where they're deficient is offensively. They are nowhere nearly as good as Kentucky offensively. St. Peter's wants to slow this game down. They know if there's a lot of possessions, that offense of Kentucky is just going to beat them into a pulp. So St. Peter's wanting to slow it down, not a lot of points. I think that does correlate with St. Peter's plus 17.5 making a lot of sense because it would be a low possession game. But if you think that this could be one of those I talked about earlier, one of those weird 55-30 type games, it's going to happen one of them. We don't know which one. This also is a candidate for that. So I think 17.5 is too many points. I like that. But if Jake kind of makes you wonder about laying the points, you don't know which way to go, I think under 132 makes a lot of sense. I think this game is going to be boring. You probably aren't going to want to spend much time on it unless you are an alum for either one of these schools.
Yeah, I like laying the points here with Kentucky. St. Peter's hasn't seen athletes like this. I've rarely seen size that Kentucky has, and they have that at almost every position except for maybe Severe Wheeler. Um, and that's just like Shigwe is going to he's going to eat during this, and he's going to clean up any misses. This will be a great practice for Kentucky to see if they can get Mintz and Grady going, because they really need those guys going to make a tournament run. So I really think you're going to see a real concentration on the offensive end here to like find some open threes and figure that out and get those guys shooting in rhythm. And I think that's where it goes. I think they're really going to have the pedal down, because they've got to figure that out, because their defense is good, but it's not great. And that's going to be a problem later on. And I think Calipari knows that. So I think he's got to get that offensive going. You saw what happened in the Tennessee game. They go 2 for 20, and they like just get beat. And that's against a really, really good defense. So I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're going to hit a few more threes. I think they'll hit closer to 5 or 6. And that'll be just enough to push them over this number. And I think it's around 20-point game.
All right, then tipping off right at that same time slot, we have Indiana versus St. Mary's. Indiana getting a little bit of that boost from the first 4 here, getting that win under their belts, a little more confidence there. Now having to travel across the country to play 2 days later, so that's obviously never a fun thing. Thankfully, 19-year-olds probably can handle that better than most of us could, right? I feel like a flight like that, a lot of us would be hurting the next day. We wouldn't be quite, game ready. Playing a St. Mary's team, playing closer to home. The model thinks this should be a pick'em with a total around 122.5. So I think under makes a lot of sense. I've got a B pick on Indiana plus 2.5. We've talked a lot about IU's defense being better lately. They were great Tuesday. Indiana's been a team to ride. I've been mostly riding them. So I think there's no reason to stop that. I don't know what happens in this game. So I'd like taking 2.5 points. I think Indiana on the money line makes a lot of sense as well, because it should be a fantastic game. And I can't really see why St. Mary's is getting enough respect to be a favorite in this game. My perception was that Indiana would probably have been more like a 1-point favorite, just because people would look at St. Mary's and say all they have is the Gonzaga win. Lately, of course, they were okay in conference, but that's not a great conference. And Indiana, just the way they've been playing, they're one psychotic 3-point half court or near half court, like one-handed launch ball, from potentially playing in the Big Ten tournament. I'm surprised. I feel like Indiana isn't getting the respect that they deserve. They're a solid team. I think they can hang in there. I like putting the 2.5 points in my back pocket. And like I said, I like that under a lot too. I think this could be a rock fight. Could be a good game, but maybe not the most entertaining game. I definitely think it's first to 60 wins. Jake, what's your take?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't understand where the respect for St. Mary's comes from. We kind of went into this on the bracket episode where I just don't get where they're seated. I think Indiana wins this game, and I think they win it like not easily when you're looking at the score, but it's going to feel kind of like last night where they were just in control the whole time, especially with – I can't say the guy's name, big guy from St. Mary's who didn't play against Gonzaga. He's still questionable. They don't know if he's going to play, and that's disaster for them, because Trace Jackson Davis can make really good big guys look really bad. And like he took full advantage of EK. Their defense is unbelievable, forcing a great amount of turnovers now. They've actually figured out how to not turn the ball over. So that's
important.
Yeah, it's really good, because now they're winning that turnover battle. They're able to put, if Indiana gets any 3 balls whatsoever, it is cake icing, right? Because they don't depend on it. They shoot terribly from there. But if they get anything out of Miller Kopp or Galloway or Geronimo, who hit a couple last night, or Xavier Johnson, if he gets going, that's enough. They're going to really, they might run. They have the potential to run St. Mary's out of the gym. But this is, I think it's going to be a closer game, because Indiana doesn't shoot well. But I think it'll feel like last night where Indiana's in control. They just don't beat you up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, there's always one of those ugly, 51-49 type games. If it's not this one, it's the next one we're going to talk about. Yeah. I think last year was the Abilene Christian Texas one, where it was just super ugly defensive battle, that sort of thing. And this is a candidate for that game. The next one is as well. Like I said, speaking of rock fights, Creighton versus San Diego State, total of 120. I'm not playing the total, but if I were, I'd play the under. The model thinks 117. This game is for sure first to 60 wins. maybe first to 55, maybe first to 50. I mean, this is going to be a defensive slugfest here. My official pick, San Diego State, -2.5. It's a B pick. The model thinks they should be favored by a little more than 4. San Diego State's defense is better than Creighton's by a lot more than Creighton's offense is better than San Diego State's offense. I think that's the difference in this game here, that by far the best unit on the court is San Diego State's defense, and their offensive efficiencies can be a little bit masked by that. So I like laying the short number here. I think San Diego State gets it done. I think they're up 4 or 5 late. Just got to hit a couple free throws, so it's not too much of a sweat. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm with you. San Diego State's defense is like Creighton's not sniffed anything that's this good. And Creighton losing a guard, I know, like that really hurt them. They came back to hurt them in that Villanova game. Like that Nimbard, it really hurts because they don't have that many guys that can create their own shot. I know they've got the 2 big guys that are very good, but San Diego State's defense is just insane. They force so many turnovers. They are like, it's unrelenting. It's everybody that comes in is just playing absolute incredible defense. They shoot the ball better than you expect. They just don't shoot the 3 a lot. They hit around 36% from 3, but they just only make 5 a game. So it's just not shooting a lot. I don't know if that's a product of their offense or just the players they have. They've also got Matt Bradley, who is just an incredible offensive player who will carry the scoring load for them. But it's defense here. It's going to be – it might be an entertaining game to watch because it could be going back and forth, but it's not going to be offensively great by any standpoint.
Yeah, if you like a good 2-to-1 pitchers duel, this is the game for you here on Thursday night. And that takes us to the late slate of games: San Francisco versus Murray State at 8:40 Central. A pick'em with a total of 137. The model thinks the total should be 137.5. But also that Murray State should be favored by 2. So it's a B pick for me on Murray to win. San Francisco isn't bad. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled this off by any stretch of the imagination. I just really like this Murray team. I think Murray -2 would make a lot more sense just from I watch a lot of basketball and see a lot of lines. I think Murray should be the favorite in this game. I don't quite understand why it's a pick 'em other than just some trendy San Francisco's kind of a hip team that no one's known about until this year and talked about. Maybe we're tired of Murray State, but I think this is a really good Murray State team that I think just has an edge up on San Francisco, given the way that they beat the teams that they did. I think it's that means something. You can't, people talk about strength of schedule and all those things. And it's like, yeah, if you play weaker teams, like that matters. But also if you play weaker teams and you just beat the daylights out of them, then that matters. That tells you that there's talent there, and that's mostly what Murray State did. So I think that Murray State's a better team. I think they get it done. It's a B pick for me as a pick'em. This is one also I might get your money in sooner because I think at some point the Murray money has to come in because a pick'em just doesn't make sense for this line, in my opinion. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I was confused by San Francisco really getting that large bit. That kind of confused me. So I like Murray State here. San Francisco's got no tournament experience, and that's kind of a big deal. They really haven't the school hasn't made a tournament since '98. So if anybody's still playing from that team, or that's going to be
probably not going to be a good player if they're playing. Little age disadvantage there.
Yeah. So that might come back to bite them. But this Murray State team they've got their seniors were freshmen on that John Morant team, right? So they've been here, they've won a game, they know what it takes. They know what it takes to pull off an upset. So that they've been on the other side. So this being here, and the OVC is better than people think, right? With Belmont, I mean, the bottom of the OVC is bad. Yeah. But you've got Belmont and Moorhead, and they play everybody twice. So that means they went to Moorhead, they went to Belmont, and they won both handedly. So I really like this Murray State team with Tevin Brown and KJ Williams. I think Williams still leads the nation in double-doubles. He also steps out and hits threes, not at a great clip, but just enough that you have to be respected, and that's really going to struggle. Like, I know San Francisco's got a really good defense, but they've not got enough on the offensive end to stay in this one, I don't think. And Murray State's defense is very good also. And I think they guard the three-point arc well, and San Francisco gets a real dependent on the threes at times. So I think that's going to come back to bite them here.
All right, and then Akron, UCLA, 8:50 p.m. Central Time. UCLA is a 13.5-point favorite, and I'm going to call this the I hate this game. This is the one game on Thursday that I cannot make a strong argument from I watch a lot of basketball standpoint. I can't give you anything from the metrics. I don't know what to expect for UCLA. The model thinks UCLA should only be favored by 12. So I'm taking Akron plus 13.5 as a B pick. And it's basically a straight trust the math. It's a trust that there's a lot of ways this game stays close. But I mean, I don't like it at all because I don't know what I'm going to get from UCLA. If the good UCLA shows up, they're going to win this game by more than 20. If the bad UCLA shows up, I would not be surprised to see Akron win this game because we just don't know what we're going to get from UCLA. And I don't think Akron will win this game. I think UCLA obviously wins. But it's just one of those things where UCLA is just so variable. I think they win. I think 13.5 is a lot. I probably didn't sell you on that. Jake, which direction are you going?
Man, I'm just barely leaning towards UCLA. And that's because Akron has been shooting the lights out of the ball here recently. And I think that comes back to the norm. They've been shooting the mid-30s when they averaged in the mid-20s from three. They go from 7 threes a game to 9 in their last few. Right, and I don't think that's going to keep up, and I think that's going to come back to bite them, especially if the first one goes in. It's one of those, like, the first one goes in, oh, I can do this, and then they shoot too many. UCLA's best part of their team is their defense, and I don't think that's going to happen. But, I mean, if Akron keeps shooting the way they do, they've got a very average defense, but if they keep shooting the way they do, that puts some pressure on UCLA because UCLA wants to go slow. They want to score when this is a stupid statement, right? They want to score every time they have the ball, but they can't afford to not, right? Like
we gotta pull that out and make that one of like the quotes, quote my friend Jake. They want to score every time they have the ball. Yeah, apparently, other teams don't.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like I said, stupid statement. Caught myself in the middle of it, but they want to go. They need to because they don't want the extra possessions for like missed shots and things like that. And they're not very deep, so foul trouble could come back to bite them. But Juzang's looking healthy now. I went back and watched the replay of that Arizona game. He looks back ready. So I think that's going to be too much. They've got too much offense, and I think they get it done. But this one wouldn't surprise me. Like there's always one of these games that comes out that. Just like not even like a 5-12 upset or like four. It just seems like the team should be overmatched just from a name standpoint. And Akron has a chance if they keep shooting the way they do, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, and like you talked about, Akron's playing well lately, but it's not even. I think they were maybe the 4 in the MAC. They're not even one of those. So a couple of those top teams in the MAC. Toledo was a buzzsaw at the end of the year, and so some of the Buffalo teams from years past have been really good, but I don't think this Akron team's as good as those. So that's why I said I don't love playing them. I'm just, and you talk about UCLA's pace. They do want to slow it down, and that could lead to, like I said, to an upset or a tighter game. So it's one of those where UCLA could be their own worst enemy in this game. But also, just from a pure talent standpoint, UCLA is the much better team. So like I said, I hate everything about this game. I'll even give you this because, like I said, a lot of times when Jake and I disagree, I can give you some total advice here. My model says the total should be 129.5, which would imply over 128.5. And I hate that too because UCLA, like you said, the best unit on this court is going to be UCLA's defense. They're going to go slow. I don't even know if I love taking the over in this situation. I sure wouldn't take the under because in general, the model's done pretty well with totals, but my goodness, there's everything to hate about this game and nothing to like about it. It should be interesting.
It should be a fun one to watch.
It should be a fun one to watch, at least the first half, right? And see, can Akron hang in there? But anything can happen in that game. And to me, it's one of the higher variance games. Yeah. Of the Thursday here just to start us off with. And that brings us to our last game Thursday, the quote unquote 9:00 Central tip off. Obviously that depends on when the games before it end. Texas Southern versus Kansas. Kansas is a 21.5 point favorite. And I'm going to make the same play here. I'm going to say 21.5 is too many points. I'm going to take Texas Southern. Like I said, I think about 3 out of 4 of these big dogs will cover. One of them will, like I said, will get the doors blown off of them, maybe 2. But in general, I think a lot of these lines get a little bit too high. The model thinks Kansas should be a 19.5-point favorite. I said it yesterday when we talked about the first 4 game, and I said it on Saturday. I had an A pick on Texas Southern in the SWAC championship game. I think they figured it out. I think the metrics are still under-respecting them. I think they were doing some weird things in the middle of the season. They were trying different things. They were letting depth guys play, see if they could, what they could do. And so they'd get up by 20 on these teams and then let them come back and tie it up or something. I think that was just playing around because Texas Southern knew they had to win the conference tournament, that it didn't matter if they went undefeated in the conference. That wasn't going to sniff the tournament for them. And so I think they've kind of figured it out. I think they're playing well. I think they fight hard. I think they're well coached. I think that they don't give up. I think they can hang in there. I think 21.5 is too many points. If you don't really want to deal with laying a ton of points or taking a bunch of points, I also think under 144 makes a lot of sense. The model thinks it should be 141. So that's another way to look on this one. I think that number just gets a little bit too high. Kansas can speed teams up, but they also have played a ton of games under. So I think 144 is too many points. I'd be a little surprised if this got into the 140s. Jake, which side are you taking? Are you laying that giant number with Kansas?
I'm leaning to the giant number with Kansas, and this is right at the edge where I'd take it. I don't want it too much higher. I just think Kansas offense is way too much for this Texas Southern defense. And then, if you watch the game last night, Texas Southern started off by turning the ball over like 100 times, it felt like. Yeah. And if they do that with this Kansas team, they're going to get the doors blown off and just never see the light of day. But they just don't shoot the 3 ball well. They don't do enough offensively to make me feel comfortable with this with this number for them. So it's right on the edge for me. I'm going to lay it with Kansas because I think Kansas offense is too much. And they struggled guarding the pick and roll, which with McCormick and Lightfoot, that's what they're going to do. And they're not going to run into a Texas A&M Corpus Christi team that can't figure out how to score because they don't have a 3 shooter on the floor. And that's the opposite problem that Kansas has. Plus, with Remy Martin out there getting healthy, he is going to really help them push the pace, and that's going to go a long way to helping this Kansas team get way up in the number. But so that's one reason I'm kind of leaning Kansas here. But
yeah, I think on this one, if you're laying with Kansas, you have to think they're going to get up by 30 because we've seen enough of this Texas Southern team. They do this. They won their first 4 game in the last 4 years here already this year. They know what it takes. They know they live for. They know they're going to Dayton. They live for that game. They win that game, and they live for every minute of airtime they can get come tournament, and they play hard for 40 minutes. So unless Kansas get up by 30, I think there's a real good chance for a backdoor. Now, Kansas obviously is good enough to do that, right? That's not off the table for sure. But if Texas Southern can just hang in there towards the end, like I said, they're going to play hard for 40 minutes. This is their moment, and their moment is not necessarily to try to win this game because I know they aren't going to. It's just to play hard and keep it close for as long as possible. So that's going to be their only objective there. They're a team I have more faith backing with a big number than some of the other ones just because, like I said, they kind of do this every year, it seems like.
Yeah, I got a question for you. The coach for Texas Southern, right? Is he trying to retire in Mexico? He went from North Texas to Southern Texas. Is he just trying to work his way down?
And Texas Southern, is he go further than that, right? He could, Texas Corpus Christi is further south. Yeah, I mean, hey, there's a lot of nice beaches in Mexico, right? It wouldn't be a bad place to end up. All right, and that is all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning into this bonus episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder, check out those other episodes. I'll make sure to put those in the show's description. I'll tweet it all out just to keep it all safe. We've got 4 other Thursday picks that we've already done in our main episodes. Here were the other 12. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. Make sure we get all of the crazy March Madness content dropped right into your feed. Best of luck opening the tournament off Thursday. Until we see you again, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.